Alrighty guys, moving along. We're moving into Module 8 now. Again, we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to move into cyber stuff. We're going to get away from the natural disasters, the man-made disasters. Actually, this could actually fall into a man-made type situation, but obviously going to be a little bit more technical. Pretty interesting. I'm in the process of learning a lot about this along the way myself. I am not an expert in cyber incidents. I'm learning just as well as everybody else is. So if you got any suggestions for me or anything like that, please throw it out there. I've been able to do a lot of research and a lot of studying here recently, so I'm getting a grasp of it. Obviously, with everything that went on about the hacking and the Russian influence and everything else and things we look at from China, I had a little bit of opportunity to work with the Army CERT teams, the computer emergency response teams, when I was in one of my former life jobs when I did some counterintelligence work. So I know a little bit about it, but I'm still kind of stumbling along the process as far as figuring out some things. Okay, that being said, a recent threat of hacking during the elections, obviously that caused some grief. Cyber risk has been really pushed to the forefront of risk management due to a number of things. You got to look at some of these organizations that stand to lose a lot of money. A lot of defense contractors were getting beat up. There's been breaches and everything else in the military and Department of Defense, Department of Justice, Department of State, and so forth. High level of sophistication, the experts in the field, is what you got to keep in mind. I mean, it's not going to be somebody walking into a building with a weapon and shooting people. It's not going to be a storm that comes out of nowhere. I mean, you got to have a little bit on the ball. You got to be a pretty smart fella. Okay, let's not be a pretty smart person. Let me make sure I clear that up. To be involved with cyber security or cyber risk or hacking and things of that nature. So, that being said, Module 8 learning objectives. We're going to describe cybersecurity risk management concepts. We're going to identify the 5 questions of cyber risk. I've got a pretty good PDF that I want you to look over. It's going to be a good basis for answering a number of your questions involving cyber risk. So I definitely want you to take a look at that. Our checklist is going to include read and watch the module content, watch a video lecture by me. I want you to look at that PDF I was just mentioning about the cyber risk management concepts, and that was been put out by the Homeland Security Department. We're going to have a Zoom study into this module as well. I want to know where you're at, what you're feeling, what you do, don't like, good, bad, and in between. I'm going to be real interested in what you had to say. So I like the Zoom sessions because I think we get some good feedback from them. This is where we really need to take a look at it. Want a couple other things. This is kind of technical, so I really want you to take a close look at things on this. So, obviously going to have our discussion question, and then we're going to kind of move through the processes. Okay, bear with me for just a second. Okay. Technology has advanced at an exponential rate, so we all know this. I mean, obviously we can go back, and I'm going to show my age a little bit, of actually listening to AOL.com here whispering to me, "You've got mail," after it goes through the bells and whistles of dial-up. So technology is advancing. I mean, look at from where we used to be to where we're at now. I mean, you don't even have to be too old to realize what's going on with smartphones. I mean, how that technology is constantly evolving, that constantly growing. As a risk management specialist, you got to understand that any disruption in your information system can hamper your operations. And that's what you got to keep in mind. It can impact your reputation. It can slow your change. You can lose or slow your supply chain. You can lose money. A lot of defense contractors, Boeing, Grumman, a number of these people have been getting beat up by intrusions from China and a number of other places. They lose millions and millions and billions of dollars yearly and annually because of cyber espionage. Industrial espionage, business espionage, things of that nature. I mean, you're looking at any number of things. The average loss of intellectual property, and this is going back to 2013, the average is $11 million a year. That's an average. I mean, you just think about that, and that's going to be varying on the size of the company, and then that moves up to one of the other numbers that we're looking at is looking up to $58 million a year. So, I mean, that's, depending on the size of your organization, I mean, either way, no matter what, it's still I'm not going to use the word I was going to use. It's a ton of money. I mean, it's a really a lot of money. So you got to make sure you take all that in consideration. Okay, that being said, oh, excuse me, a little bit of a cold. So kind of fighting some of this. I'm moving forward a little bit, going to get through. Okay, the PDF that I want you to look at is called Cyber Risk Management Primers for CEOs. These are going to be some of the questions that you should be asking, or correction, that some of the questions that your CEO should be asking you, or your director, or your supervisor, and you should be able to have these answers readily available. I'm looking at this from I'm the CEO standpoint. These are the questions that I'd be asking a cyber specialist or asking my risk management guy. The 5 questions are very straightforward, and I really, guys, really want you to focus on these 5 questions, because these are going to be kind of your catalyst. This is going to be the things that you prompt. What's the current level and business impact of cyber risk to our company? That's a fair question. That's a very fair question. What is my risk? If I'm your boss, hey, what do I stand to lose through cyber risk? Seems pretty straightforward. Here's where you are. You're the guy now. What are you doing to mitigate, address and identify these risks? What is your job? Risk management. What are you doing to, where's my word? Mitigate. That's how you got to look at it. What are you doing to mitigate these risks? Next one. How is our executive leadership informed about the current level and business impact of cyber risk to the company? What are you doing to let them know what goes on? Are you doing some sort of regular modification of password? Are you using something along those lines? Do you have to constantly change your password? Do you have to do certain things? Are there certain numbers you can use? Is there certain places where you can't bring an iPod? I mean, it could be any number of things to protect from these risks. Hacking is obviously going to be a big deal, so you got to figure out how to stop that and prevent and mitigate this hacking process. And there's things you can do, but you got to make sure you're be able to aware that you can. You don't have to be the expert on that, but what you got to do is you got to be able to have that base knowledge to understand what's going on. Okay? Question 3, how does our cybersecurity program apply industry standards and best practices? If I'm your boss, I'm asking you, what are you doing? How's our program working? How is it working with other programs? Are we feeding off the ideas of somebody else, or is somebody else feeding off our ideas? Are we working with partners to mitigate these risks? At the end of the day, guys, especially if you're a government organization, you got to be working together. You got to be talking to each other. You got to be working together. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, how many cyber incidents do you detect in a normal week? I can tell you this without getting into the classification part of it with the military. They were looking, when I was at Fort Huachuca, they were looking at thousands and thousands of probes a day, looking for vulnerabilities. They were coming from obviously China, North Korea, Russia, a number of other places, and that's what they were doing. They were looking for these vulnerabilities. How many? Obviously, if you're getting 1,000 a day, yeah, I mean, you're going to have a lot of people working involved with this. But if you're getting 1 or 2 over the course of a week, that's something maybe the size of your business or the size of your organization. You need to let your boss know what's going on, because he's going to want to have that fidelity on that information to be able to tell, okay, this is what's happening. And then, of course, he's going to come back to you. Okay, how can you fix this? How can you keep me from being breached? All right. How comprehensive is our cyber incident response plan? How often is the plan tested? What did I tell you about? We discussed this. I've mentioned this earlier about continuity of operations. If we get breached, what are we doing? What's happening? How do we do that? How do we handle that? How do we stop the breach? Okay? Once we figure that out, how do we stop the breach, what are we going to do? How's the plan tested? Okay, we can have all the plans in the world and everything looks great on paper, and we've got all these thick 3-inch binders and all these standard operating procedures and all this other stuff, but how often do we test it? Going back to what I was saying in the last module, I'm a huge advocate of testing and training. You can't emphasize that enough. Always evaluating, always be looking at things from different perspectives. Keep in the mindset you are going to be involved with as a learning and growing organization. You should constantly be learning. You should constantly be growing. Okay, those 5 questions the CEO should be asking about cyber risk are the questions that you should be prepared to answer at any given time. I want you to take a look at the discussion question. Give me some good feedback on this one, because again, I'm learning just like you guys are. Let's get some good feedback on this. Let's generate some good discussion, and I will see you in the next module.